So the Milton gets traded. He gets moved. Milton in a 7th for a 5th. Milton was the 6th round pick of the draft a year ago.
Yep.
In the draft a year ago, and Jordan Schultz comes out, and it was, I read it, or when I saw it, it was absolutely ludicrous that Joe Milton. I'll give you several reasons. The report was that there had been other teams, the Steelers among them, who had offered more for Joe Milton, but the Patriots wanted to honor Joe Milton, so they sent him to his chosen destination. Now, let's break this down from both sides. Well, it makes no sense. A, it's preposterous that the Patriots would do that for a kid they just drafted in the 6th round. And so let's put that aside. Why would he want to go where they've just extended Dak Prescott? If
Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback in the history of the NFL.
Dak Prescott's going to be the quarterback of the Cowboys for a very, very long time. Why would he not want to go to Pittsburgh, who doesn't have a quarterback? Like, if he was to pick a destination anywhere besides Dallas, I mean, Dallas is one of the worst situations if you want to be a starting quarterback in football. I mean, it's Kansas City, Dallas, Buffalo. I mean, there's like
Cincinnati.
There's only a handful of teams that have these as bad a situation. So anyway, that was preposterous, and you have done some reporting, Burden, and it is not true.
Well, yeah. So my understanding is they talked to other teams and they were shopping him, and this was, I mean, more like the Patriots trying to find a new home for him, because they just didn't think the fit was there in the quarterback room, and they wanted to clear the decks for Drake May. It was something they communicated actually to Josh Dobbs, because when Josh Dobbs came here, part of it was like he wanted to be the primary backup, and when you're that age, you want to know, like, hey, if I'm going to sign here, I want a pretty good assurance that I'm going to be on the team in September.
Right.
And so they said to him, in no uncertain terms, like, no, we don't want competition in the room for Drake right now. What we're looking for is a resource, and kind of like Josh McCown was for all those years, like what Derek Anderson was.
Hoyer was here.
Yeah.
And Josh Dobbs probably said, that's fine. I'm not here to compete for the starting job, but I don't want to compete for the backup job.
Right. I don't want to be in a spot where I'm getting cut at the end of August and looking for a new job. And so they had sort of signaled to him that this was a likelihood that they would wind up moving on from Joe Milton. So, like they had shopped Joe Milton around a bunch. And again, like a lot of that communication between the Patriots and the other teams was prompted by the Patriots. And they had one offer. And that offer from Dallas was initially a 7th round pick, and they wind up negotiating it up where it's now, a 5 and a 7 coming back or going back to Dallas with him, which is a pick swap that winds up if you look at the draft chart, it winds up being it's a 46 pick difference. It winds up being the equivalent of a 6th round pick, which is essentially what they spent to get him a year ago. So it's basically a wash.
You're saying that Joe Milton's electric performance in the last game of the season did not improve the scouting that had been done of him.
Beyond anything else, there is 6 years of college evidence on him.
Yeah.
Like he threw. And I love the people that around here that were acting like they were going to get a 2 or 3. Like what? Like this, and it's not like the guy. It's not like the guy is like 21 years old either. You know what I mean? Like
the calls were endless yesterday.
Well, let him finish his point.
God.
Okay, so
do you guys know whose recruiting class he was in?
At
Trevor
Michigan?
No. Do you like the
go ahead.
The recruiting class, like the year he came out of high school, the other quarterbacks in that recruiting class, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, like that's his age. So this isn't a guy who is 21 years old and maybe underdeveloped. He played at 2 major programs.
Yeah.
One of them let him walk without much of a fight. The other one, was really good before he became the starter and then got really good again this year after he left. So, and I'm not denigrating the guy, but there's 6 years of college evidence here. Like this idea that 4 quarters against a Buffalo team that was, basically fielding their version of a G League team out there was going to change everything is crazy.
Well, there's two reasons why the fan base feels this way.
Because they don't watch college football?
That's number one. And it's not only not watching college football because, like, who's expected to watch the Tennessee season that Milton plays?
Yeah.
But it's also just the inability to realize that every one of these teams has scouted every one of these kids extensively.
Right.
And, like, so it's not like – and then there was – people that like work like reporting on the NFL, I don't remember exactly who would say this to us, but they'd be like, well, they would want a guy that had, been developed in the Patriot system. They wanted a guy that Alex Van Pelt would work with for a year. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like, why would they want
well, so
some
that
things
to me
people
is
say
like,
are crazy.
That to me is like the biggest red flag on Joe Milton. Is who could use a young quarterback to throw in the system? Is the Rams. You know who's really good at developing young quarterbacks? Is the Rams. Where does Alex Van Pelt work now?
Rams.
So, like, the idea, like, that the Rams who have, you guys can look it up. I think they have 4 6th-round picks. The Rams do. Okay, go look it up.
Sure.
Go look it up.
We'll take your word for it.
But I think they have 4 6th-round picks that the Rams wouldn't step into this. And with Alex Van Pelt there and say, like, yeah, like, we'll throw you a 6th-round pick when we don't know. Like Matthew Stafford is like year to year there right now. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you that Joe Milton is not very good.
4 6th-round picks.
But the other reason is not only the like ignorance of just accepting that
4
people,
of them.
but it's also that he cost them the number 1 overall pick. That like you saw Milton show out in that game. And that cost you the number 1 overall pick.
And now that Cam Ward's gotten hot, can you imagine what they would have been able to get for them?
And but to justify that in your mind, you go, all right, well, the good news that came out of that game is we found a very intriguing trade chip for other teams. Remember, after Milton played really well in that game, that was like, well, now we have a trade chip. In fact, Nick put a video up of me like being very sarcastic about trading him for 2 1s. And, trading him to the Giants because they like him more than Shedeur Sanders. Yeah. And there were people, like, earnestly commenting under it. Like, yeah, you should get a number 1. You should get the 3rd pick in the draft.
Here's a good example of how that can work sometimes, right? So I think Matt Schaub is a good example. If you guys remember, he was Vic's backup in Atlanta. This would have been like, what, 04, 05, 06, something like that, right? And here was a guy who was a very good college player, like a really, really good college player at the University of Virginia. But, like, there was some question, is he quite good enough? Teams liked him coming out. The Falcons draft him. He played really well in a bunch of preseason games. And so, like, then some teams look at it and they put their evaluation. It's like, well, we did like him as a college player, but was he quite physically gifted enough to be a good pro? And then you see him in the preseason, okay, it translates, and then you wind up and then Houston winds up trading for him because Gary Kubiak liked him years before when he was coming out. That's how that happens. It doesn't happen because of one game. It happens because teams look back at like the evaluation that they had in college and said, well, we actually really liked him coming out, and we weren't in a spot to take him then. But now we're putting that together with some of the pro tape he has, and boom, there it is.
Whoop.
Joe Milton, like, I don't know anybody who watched him in college. Like, it was one of these guys, and I mean, I said to you guys last year, he's like a broken jugs machine, right? Like, the ball's going to go really far. You just don't know in what direction.
No, he wasn't good for Tennessee. Like,
yeah, if you watch,
it's become a joke about how much I didn't like the pick, and I'm part of it is because people were getting so pissed off. I just kept doubling down on it, and it was funny that he played really well the last game of the season, but he is not good. I mean,
if you had to guess in 6 years of college football, how many touchdown passes he had?
Well, he barely played at Michigan, and
he was a starter, and he lost the job.
Yeah, I know, but he barely played at Michigan.
McNamara.
Yeah, but the point remains he barely played. He had 25 touchdowns.
37.
Okay.
All right, so you undercut it. But 37 touchdown passes in 6 years of college football, and 20 of that came in his last year.
Right.
Okay.
He's not good.
How many
He's never
interceptions
been good.
did he throw?
Not a lot.
Okay.
He threw 5. I think he threw 5 in his final year. 11 total.
So,
All right.
I mean, the idea that the Patriots did a favor last year for Matthew Judon. Okay.
Right.
Matthew Judon was in his 30s. Matthew Judon had been underpaid for a couple of years. Matthew Judon had given them a really good level of production. Judon at the end was a little bit of a pain in the ass, but like I think they looked at it and said, you know, this is a guy who's been in the pros for almost a decade. Like, let's do him a solid.
Let's take care of him.
Let's just take care of him because I think it was like a question of, and I think in that case, like the offers I think were the same, right? Like they were relatively similar, and it was like, okay, we've got a 3rd round pick on the table from both teams. We could sit here and guess whether or not the Bears or the Falcons are going to be the worst team and have the higher pick. We could do that, but you know what? In this case, you know, Matthew, we're going to do you a solid.
You want to go to Atlanta? There you go.
Yeah, this is like a guy coming off of his first year who Mike Vrabel doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like who? I don't see where you can look at this and say, like, this is the player. You wouldn't do it anyway, and they didn't. It was the only offer they had.
It occurs to me
All
that
right. We do have to break.
Okay.
Well, we do. And so we will.
There's your full segment.
Pointing at the clock,
on-
John. It's very late.
There's your full segment on Joe Milton.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, there you have it. And I didn't have to say much, so that's great. You explained it to the people, which is what I wanted.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.